Alright, I just wanted to make a very quick video just detailing some of my thoughts, some of my experiences today at the abortion clinic. My name is Russell Hunter. I'm the Chief Creative Officer for Abolish Human Abortion, and that means that I spend a lot of time making posters and drop cards and quad folds and coming up with statuses and projects and ideas for us to do. So I spend a lot of time in front of a keyboard, lawyering, creating things that are supposed to change the culture, destroy pro-choice misinformation, and that sort of thing. That's what I primarily do. I don't go to abortion clinics enough, and I'm trying to go to them more often than I do. So trying to go to an abortion clinic, once a week, and I kind of want to make these videos just talking about what I see there. Today, a span of 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours, saw 10 women go in and get abortions. Everybody who visited the abortion clinic today had a nicer car than me. They all looked like they were pretty well off, and even though I kept on saying we will help you, none of them wanted my help. But a lot of them did come and speak with me today, come over and talk to me either before or after they had had their abortions or while they were waiting. And a few interesting things. One, Larry Burns in Norman, Oklahoma, he only does abortions up to 12 weeks. After 12 weeks, he takes a pro-life position, and he thinks that abortion really should only be done in the case that the mother's life is in jeopardy. And he kind of is opposed. Like Oklahoma has a 20-week pain ban that they did a couple of years ago. Abortion clinics are still really, really busy, and this guy, Larry Burns, actually sort of embraces that pain capability stuff because he makes millions of dollars and lives in a mansion and has everything he wants from killing babies before 12 weeks when a majority of the abortions happen. So it's very busy. Lots of people going in. One of the details that I saw at the clinic today was that 4 of the people that I talked to claimed to be Christian. They claimed to be Christian when I asked them what that meant. They said that they regularly went to church, that they believed that Jesus was God, etc., etc., but they didn't really follow Jesus, obviously. And when I brought that up, they generally would say, well, what, you don't sin? And I would say, like, no, I do sin. I try to fight and kill sin every day, and I'm not a slave to sin, and Christ has freed me from sin. But they're like, oh, well, abortion is a sin just like any other sin. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Like, all sins are equal in the eyes of God. And then so, like, they all say that as though, like, like raping and, molesting children and killing people is the same as, like, lying and stealing like a stick of gum. Now they're the same in the sense that they're in the category of sin, but they're different. And this one's like killing and murdering a neighbor and destroying the image of God, and there's much more serious consequences for certain sins than others, and so on and so forth. But they all say this, and I'm like, where'd you hear that? And it's like usually their pastors preach on it. They also say that they're like regularly go to church and that God will forgive them of their abortion. It's kind of like they know that what they're doing is wrong, but they also have been taught that God's going to let them off. So they got like this genie Jesus who, they go in, they do this thing, and they come out, they rub the lamp, and it's like, forgive me, and everything's good. This is like what the apostles wrote about. This is like turning the grace of God into licentiousness. This is, basically the most horrendous mockery of the gospel that I can even imagine. Jesus will forgive me for destroying the least of these, my brothers, my sisters, my own children, image bearers of God, neighbors. I'm going to have this other guy scrape them into pieces inside of me, but Jesus will forgive me. Well, I don't think they think about that. Obviously, the pastors aren't preaching it to them. Another thing I noticed is that you got a lot of like older ladies taking their daughters in, like moms taking their daughters in, and they usually look like they regret it or they're like hiding it. I generally tend to believe, I'm judging a book by a cover, that those are pro-lifers. They have a position against abortion, but they sent their daughter off to public schools to be salt and light. But the culture told her to be a sexual object. Some guy got her pregnant, and then mom and dad don't want a teenage daughter, and so it's kind of like sneak her off to the abortion clinic. And I saw a mom today crying as she came back out. She probably thought she was doing something for her daughter, but she was doing something for herself, and it was like the worst act of being a mother that she's ever committed. Another mom, like sort of ushered her daughter in really quickly, trying to keep her from hearing what we had to say. What else happened today? A lady, another Christian, she drove up in one of this Oklahoma medical vac van thing, where it's like a medical transport for people who are in wheelchairs, delivering a woman in a wheelchair to get an abortion. And I talked to her, and she said she didn't know. I was like, well, does your company normally deliver people to get abortions? And she said, no, I didn't even know this place did abortions. And she's kind of distraught about it, because she claimed to be a Christian and that she thought abortion was wrong and all that kind of stuff. And then I just said, well, you probably shouldn't do this, and I'm going to expose your company, and hopefully they're Christians and they'll make it kind of a policy to not deliver people to their deaths. And she said, well, I was just doing my job. No, she's just doing her job. I mean, she's just doing her job like, those delivery men and women who brought things in and out of Auschwitz, not knowing that Jews were being gassed on the other side of those walls. I mean, it's a culture of death, and whenever a Christian is involved in it and you confront them on it, they just say, hey, I'm just doing my job. Been down this road before. Anyway, so, we had one couple that looked like they weren't going to kill their baby, but they did. And that's heartbreaking. Those of us who go to clinics see this quite often. But the main point of the video is this. The main thing I learned is, as one guy, actually two, a guy and a lady came up to us and said, we shouldn't be out there telling people not to get abortions. We should go to the high schools, or we should preach our message in the church. Like, don't be at the clinic, go to the church. Well, when we go to the church, they tell us to go to the clinic. And when we go to the high schools, they say it's inappropriate. So it's just a weird sort of thing. It's like, don't talk about abortion here, talk about it there. Don't talk about abortion there, talk about it there. So it's this big thing. Keep it secret, keep it hidden. This is what the culture does. But yeah, most of these people were Christians. Most of them were regular church attenders. And I know like groups like Babies Are Murdered here, like really hate that abolitionists would go to churches, especially like these sort of lukewarm, apathetic churches, or churches that actually preach from the pulpit that all sin is equal and God's going to let you off. And Christians aren't different than lost people. They're just saved, like ontologically. I know like Babies Are Murdered here, and those groups really don't want us to go to the church. But every time I go to the abortion clinic, every time that I share the gospel there, I'm like being combated with stuff that they learn at their churches. So those are some of the things that I learned, some of the experiences that I had at the abortion clinic. I'm going to try to make a debriefing video every time I go out there. I'm a navel-gazing kind of guy that likes to think things through, but I can't just sit behind a keyboard. I can't just, sit and do nothing. But after I go do something, my impulse is to sort of talk about it. So thanks for listening.